Welcome to Future Trends, where we examine the latest stories reshaping tomorrow's international dynamics. This week's headlines: France to boost nuclear arsenal in Euro advanced deterrence strategy, Iran conflict disrupts global shipping, why Pakistan-Afghanistan cross-border strikes are escalating, nearly 170 people killed in attack in South Sudan, and serious ethical risks of using ChatGPT as a therapist. Starting with politics, France to boost nuclear arsenal and extend deterrence to European allies. President Macron said the changes as the response to an increasingly unstable strategic environment, as the next 50 years will be an era of nuclear weapons, with the number of French nuclear warheads to be increased from their current level of around 300, and the launch in 2036 of a new nuclear-armed submarine to be called the Invincible. He said 8 other European countries, the UK, Germany, Poland, the Netherlands, Belgium, Greece, Sweden, and Denmark, had agreed to participate in a new advanced deterrence strategy. China restricts exports to 40 Japanese entities with ties to military. The move follows Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi's comments on potential intervention in a China-Taiwan conflict. Polish Parliament approves EU defence loan, but President could veto. Poland's Parliament passed a law to access $51 billion in EU defence loans under the Security Action for Europe programme, though President Narocki may veto it under pressure from nationalist allies. India-Canada agreed to deals as Carney and Modi reset ties. It included cooperation on critical minerals and a uranium supply deal for nuclear power. The two leaders hailed a fresh start in the nation's relationship after Ottawa in 2023 accused New Delhi of orchestrating a deadly campaign against Sikh activists in Canada, accusations India rejected. US presses Syria to shift from Chinese telecom systems. Syria is exploring the possibility of procuring Chinese technology to support its telecommunications towers and the infrastructure of local internet service providers. Washington argued it conflicts with US interests and threatens US national security. Here's the latest in conflict. Why Pakistan-Afghanistan cross-border strikes are escalating. Relations between Afghanistan and Pakistan have steadily deteriorated since the Afghan Taliban returned to power in 2021. The neighbors have been exchanging cross-border military strikes for months. After another round of deadly attacks in late February, in which Pakistan said it killed hundreds of militants, the country's defense minister Asif declared on social media platform X that the two nations are now at open war. Attack locations across Iran and retaliatory strikes. There were reports of US and Israeli attacks on locations across the country, including in Isfahan, where there is a major nuclear facility, the holy city of Qom, and in Karaj, Kermanshah, Lorstan, and Tabriz. Locations where Iran's military had retaliated so far targeted Israel, Jordan, Kuwait, Iraq, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Oman. Israel said it was attacking sites connected to Lebanon's Hezbollah militants, one of Tehran's principal allies in the Middle East, after Hezbollah said it launched missiles and drones toward Israel in retaliation for the killing of Iran's supreme leader Khamenei. Nearly 170 killed in attack in South Sudan's Ruweng. 90 of those killed were civilians, with the remaining 79 government soldiers. The violence highlights concerns, including from the UN, of deepening instability since the arrest of former First Vice President Macha a year ago. President Key signed a peace agreement with Macha in 2018 to end 5 years of civil war that killed an estimated 400,000 people, but opposing forces have clashed frequently over disagreements about how to share power. Moving to economics news. Iran conflict disrupts global shipping as tankers are stranded, damaged. Insurance companies are cancelling war risk coverage for vessels in the Gulf as the widening Iran conflict disrupted shipping, leaving at least 5 tankers damaged, 2 personnel killed, and around 150 ships stranded around the Strait of Hormuz. The narrow shipping route on Iran's southern border carries 1/5 of global seaborne crude oil, 1/5 of LNG shipments, and one-third of the most widely used fertilizer, urea. Higher oil and gas prices could put pressure on consumer energy costs. Middle East conflict and airspace shutdown tests Dubai aviation hub. Global air travel relies on a handful of hubs led by Dubai, the world's busiest international airport, which stands at the center of a global network spanning 110 nations and 454,000 flights a year. Most analysts say that, barring a prolonged regional war, the Gulf hubs will recover by virtue of the momentum and the power of their networks. But the unprecedented shutdown of all three major hubs, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Doha, coincides with growing competition from Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and India. Eurozone factory growth hit 44-month high in February. Eurozone manufacturing expanded at its fastest pace in nearly 4 years last month as new orders bounced, and factory output rose, although rising cost pressures squeezed margins. Now for news in development. Iran conflict disrupts global shipping as tankers are stranded, damaged. Insurance companies are cancelling war risk coverage for vessels in the Gulf as the widening Iran conflict disrupted shipping, leaving at least 5 tankers damaged, 2 personnel killed, and around 150 ships stranded around the Strait of Hormuz. The narrow shipping route on Iran's southern border carries 1/5 of global seaborne crude oil, 1/5 of LNG shipments, and 1/3 of the most widely used fertilizer, urea. Higher oil and gas prices could put pressure on consumer energy costs. Myanmar's military government pardons 10,000 prisoners. The government also reduced the sentences of others, with the amnesty coming 2 weeks before Parliament is set to convene for its first session in more than 5 years following the recent disputed election. Mozambique to receive $6 billion in World Bank financing over 5 years. The funding is to support large-scale public investment projects and includes concessional funds from the bank as well as externally mobilized capital intended to bolster economic recovery, improve infrastructure, and help address fiscal challenges magnified by cyclones and flooding. American sympathies in the Middle East have shifted dramatically toward the Palestinians, according to new polling, after decades of overwhelming support for the Israelis. That shift accelerated during the war in Gaza. 3 years ago, 54% of Americans sympathized more with the Israelis, compared with 31% for the Palestinians. Now their support is about evenly balanced, with 41% saying their sympathies lie more with the Palestinians, and only 36% saying the same about the Israelis. $40 billion copper boom in Argentina hinges on revamped glacier law. The current law is meant to preserve ice features supplying water to farms and cities downstream. Industry groups argue that modern mining can operate in mountainous regions without affecting water reserves, with miners seeking clearer definitions to ensure that formations without meaningful hydrological function are not misclassified as strategic water reserves. Finally, our social news: apes can use their imagination and play pretend. In a series of Tea Party-like experiments, one bonobo engaged with cups of imaginary juice and bowls of pretend grapes, in a similar way you'd expect a toddler to. 60,000-year-old markings on ostrich eggshells reveal world's oldest geometric grammar. Analysis of the world's oldest geometric patterns revealed the complex cognition that eventually enabled Homo sapiens to invent writing. The forms resembled a series of boxes, hatched bands, grids, and diamonds, which the study showed reflected a genuine cognitive organization of forms based on parallelism, orthogonality, and the repetition of lines and regular patterns. Record 129 press members killed in 2025. The number of deaths surpassed any year since the Committee to Protect Journalists began tracking deaths in 1992. Most deaths occurred in conflict zones, with roughly 2/3 attributed to Israeli fire, primarily in Gaza and related battlefields. Ukraine, Sudan, Mexico, and the Philippines also saw notable journalist fatalities. Apes can use their imagination and play pretend. In a series of Tea Party-like experiments, one bonobo engaged with cups of imaginary juice and bowls of pretend grapes. In a similar way, you'd expect a toddler to. US ordered government agencies to stop using Anthropic AI tools. Anthropic refused US government demands that it agree to give the US military unfettered access to its AI tools. The US government deemed Anthropic a supply chain risk. A label would make Anthropic the first US company ever to publicly receive such treatment. Serious ethical risks of using ChatGPT as a therapist. As millions turn to ChatGPT and other AI chatbots for therapy-style advice, new research raises a serious red flag. Even when instructed to act like trained therapists, these systems routinely break core ethical standards of mental health care, from mishandling crisis situations and reinforcing harmful beliefs to showing biased responses and offering deceptive empathy that mimics care without real understanding. That's your Future Trends update for this week. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time with more stories reshaping our world.